Welcome back to Brand Chops, where we give you bite-sized, no-fluff strategies to stop wasting money on marketing and build a smarter brand. Today's episode is for every business owner who's ever sat in a networking group and thought, why am I here? Why is this room draining me? Why does no one seem to get what I do? Today, we're joined by someone who didn't just ask those questions, she built her own answers. Sarah Hubbard is the founder of the Intentional Network, a speaker, mortgage broker, and soon-to-be author. She's building a movement for professionals, especially introverts and those in crowded industries who are ready to network with purpose, clarity, and authenticity. This is not your average How to Network episode. This is about branding yourself to be memorable, referable, and impossible to ignore. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Okay, we're just going to jump right into it. We've got some questions we want to go from, and we're just learn a little bit more about you. So you created the Intentional Network because traditional groups weren't cutting it. Let's start with your why. What were you looking for that you couldn't find?
What I was looking for was something that was a little bit higher level in regards to being a business owner. I think there's a lot out there that supports the just starting. And then you hit that 3 to 5 year marker where most people start having success, but they're also doing it right here, that one person. And in order to start building your brand and getting it out more to people, you need to have other people that are elevating you and challenging you. And so instead of being in these groups that maybe aren't doing that, I felt like there was a huge gap in regards to that next step of business growth. And so that was why I decided to form the Intentional Network. It was all about sharing the playbook, sharing what works, what doesn't work, and having a little bit of a mastermind on top of networking. And when you show up as you are and you build true relationships, it really, really elevates the environment, the energy that kind of goes along with everything. And it really brings everything into alignment, especially with your marketing and branding, because networking is a form of marketing and branding.
Oh, absolutely. And I love how you said a place where people will challenge you. You need to be challenged. And I think that one of the biggest ways you need to be challenged is getting authentic, real feedback,
Yes.
especially on your brand, especially how you show up. And I don't think that you get that in every networking group. There's a lot of fake people. There's a lot of pitches and a lot of selling to the group. And just like you were saying, it's kind of like a hybrid with a masterclass where there's a lot more authenticity and just a lot more introspective thinking and just trying to see, okay, how can I improve instead of how can I sell and how can I leverage this to get more for myself? And people, I think in that kind of group, when you set that as the precedent, will be more receptive to that kind of feedback. And that's the best kind of feedback. I don't ever want someone to blow smoke for me. Like,
Well, that and not actually talk about what's going on, because I feel like when you're showing up and you're like, everything is great, I'm crushing it, and like inside you're not, your energy levels don't match up to what you're putting out to there. And that can lead to frustration. And that leads to not building your brand and not building who you are as your business. I feel like there's a lot more credibility that goes a long way when you show up as you are. Sometimes the great, sometimes the hard, and sometimes just the mediocre. Wherever that stands, you have to be able to show up in those spaces, be real about it, not be a drain about it, but be real about it, and then be open to suggestions or open to opportunity if that's what you're looking for.
yeah, I think one of the things that people make a big mistake on, especially with their logo design and stuff like that, is they'll start with everything that they like the most.
Yep.
I make a joke, and I probably said this a million times on this podcast, but people usually come to us and say, I like blue, make me a business. You know, it's like, that's all you need to know is that my favorite color is blue, and this makes me laugh. Make me a business. Go.
And go for it, Zach. Just and be great at it, please. Just take it from here.
Instead of what is it that you actually solve? What problem are you solving? Is that a problem that exists? Who needs that problem solved, and what matters to them? And how can we craft
Yes.
messaging that focuses all on that? And so a lot of people will do this with their brand and then their brand identity, right? And so they'll throw their logo out on Facebook and say, what do you think? And people will be like, I love it. I like it. It's great. Cool. And they're only really judging this based on a personal aesthetic, because you can have a technically well done, pretty logo, but it means nothing. It communicates nothing. It's distinct. It's not distinctive enough. It could be infringing on something. And just because it's got your favorite color in it,
Right.
or words that you
Or it's
like.
laid out, or it's in a circle versus it being, on an angle or whatever it is. That's
Yeah, it's
only
an illustration of your
one.
dog, or like none of that really makes any difference, and it actually hurts you. But that's the value of having a group like this, where you get that more authentic. And I always tell people, I said, don't, if you're going to throw this anywhere, especially don't throw this on Facebook. But if you are, don't just ask, what do you think? Ask them something specific. Ask them something like, what do you think I do?
Yeah.
What
Or how does this
service
make
do
you
you think?
feel?
How does
Like
this
when you
make you
see
feel?
this, what does it make you think of when you think of me? Are you thinking
Yeah.
that I do residential mortgage financing? I create communities. I bring realness. I want to help level up business owners by actually giving them the house. Or is it just like, it's sparkly and pretty and it has two colors and it lays out well? Like there's differences in regards to what it is.
Actually, just the way you said that made me think of, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, but sometimes people will put like fake eyelashes on their headlights on their car or something like, do you know what I mean? Like stuff that they just think is the greatest in the world. But if you go to try to resell that car, that's a one for one, you
One for
know,
one, baby. You're going to find,
you know.
take your buying pool from here to like
And
this
so you've got
much.
to remember that it's not about you. It's almost never about you. It's
Yep.
always about the problem that you solve and the people that you serve. I just love the way that you brought that up. Let's dig a little bit deeper. I know you
Mhm.
mentioned before that you have something called the MAPP framework, the
Yeah.
MAPP. It's the foundation of your keynote and your upcoming book. So can you walk us through a little bit of what it stands for and how it helps professionals build a better personal brand?
Yeah. So the mapping stands for, I'll go through the four of them and I'll break it down a little bit. So mindset, intention, authenticity, precise messaging, purposeful follow through. So I found
Mm,
that these are the main pillars when you are just networking out and about with various groups, with one to ones, with wherever you are in life. If you can really dial in these four things, you can have lots of success in networking. No matter how introverted you are, extroverted you are, ambivert, whatever, however you relate to yourself on a personality level. And so the mindset and intention is all about before you walk into a room, an event, a conference, you need to have the correct mindset of where you are internally. And then you also need to know, what do I need out of this? And it's never going to be the same every single time. There can feel like it's a lot of repetitive for a lot of people. They're like, oh, I'm going into the same BNI meeting and my ask has been the same for the past 4 weeks. Well, guess what? It takes people 7 times to hear what you do at minimum. So great, but I need a CPA. I need somebody from marketing and branding. I'm looking to level up my security and tech or whatever it is, or I'm looking to hire a VA. You have to have an intention. And if you don't have those specific asks, or you're just looking to meet 3 new people in the community, you're going to go in kind of blind and you're going to go in and be like, I don't know, I just spent 2 hours. I'm not sure I got anything out of it. So that's really, really important to set the tone. Authenticity, we throw this word around a lot, and I think it's a beautiful, beautiful word. But I believe my view on authenticity is showing up as you truly are in that moment, and then distraction free and active listening. Those are really, really key. We all have these cell phones, whatever it is. And if you can't maintain that eye contact and you're going to go in there and listen to respond versus listening to learn, that is already going to set you up for a little bit of a setback or a longer term to get there. Precise messaging stands as it is, a really strong 30-second introduction, 10-second what do I do? That needs to be dialed in and pretend you're talking to a 10-year-old, because a lot of people tend to throw in terms that we may use in our business all the time, but the average Joe does not have a clue. They don't live in the mortgage world, they don't live in marketing and branding. And so things that I use in my everyday world, they're like, I don't know what that means. But they're never going to say anything to you that they don't know what it means. But it's just going to take longer to bridge that gap to understand that I want to be top of mind when I am thought of for X. And then last piece, purposeful follow through, is where everybody, I believe, really tanks when networking, where you have a great conversation. Wow, it was really wonderful. Did you make your promises and connections that you said you were going to do? And then do you touch base with these people again? I have a simple system. I mark people A, B, C, or nothing. A's are, you can totally fuel my business. I love what we're doing here. I'm going to follow up with you every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. B's are, there's a lot that I think we do great. Not sure you're going to have a ton of mortgage business to send my way, for using myself as an example, but I still love to be in touch with you every about 3 or 4 months. C's are, you're freaking great. Our businesses are completely different, but I still want you in my circle. So maybe I'm following up personally with you every 6 months. And this
mm.
is, when I mean follow up, I mean, hey, you were on my mind this morning. How is everything going? Do we have time to set up another Zoom call, another coffee? It's not a, hey, I was following up, hope all is well. Like, it is with intention. It is with a reason. It is a podcast episode, a book that you just read, whatever it is. So that's my mapping framework that goes into a lot of different things. But I think when all of those really align, it doesn't just make you great at networking. You're also out there representing who you are as a business owner and what the experience is going to be like when they come to you, which again comes back to branding, comes back to the whole package that you get from start to finish when you are working with you and your business or your company.
I love that. I love that so much. And I say this a lot about what a brand really is, if you boil it down to its essence, is it's really just the promises that you keep.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not even the ones that you make. And I've said this a million times, but I feel like it warrants repetition, because you could make a promise every day. And even if you break that promise 50% of the time, then the only brand you've created is that you're a promise breaker, because that's the only thing that they can rely on. That's the only promise you've actually kept, is that you've broken every promise. It doesn't matter if that promise is I'll meet you at this certain time, or I'll follow up with such and such, or I'll get you whatever you ask for, or whatever it is. And that speaks volumes, because how you do one thing is honestly most of the time how you do everything. And when you do this, with your MAPP system, you really have to be clear, like you said, about what you want to get out of this. And you have to be clear about your goals and your strategy. And what I find that is interesting is, depending on which networking group you're talking about,
right,
I feel like they kind of lead you astray sometimes to serve the group over the people in it. And things like, we'll give you extra time to talk. When I was in my BNI groups, they would give away an extra 60 seconds to whoever was voted by the group based on no metrics, no anything, just whatever people liked the most. It didn't even have to be the best. It was whatever people liked the most, you get an additional 60 seconds. Now, the problem with that is that you're creating more noise. Your goal should always be to figure out how to say the same thing in the least amount of time.
Yeah, I'm like, concise, baby. Like, not more is not better.
Cut it in half as many times as you can until you cannot again. That is a thing I learned in creative writing class in high school. Cut it in half as many times as you can. And I think, I can't remember who quoted this, but they said, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time. And it was Mark Twain, maybe. Anyway, because when you're in a group full of 30, 40 people, we're only hardwired to survive or thrive. So first of all, when you start the sentence with "this is how great I am and this is what I do," we're already shut off. We're not even listening.
You have lost the relatability factor tenfold. They don't care about that. Nobody cares about it.
What you do. Nobody cares about what you do. Doesn't matter how great you are. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter if you're the nicest person, if you're the most attractive person. Doesn't really matter. They only care about what you can do for them. And so you have to make sure that you understand what problem you solve, and lead with that with as few words as possible. And really just lean into that. We go through workshops and we build something off of a framework called the feature advantage benefit. We break it down. So like, if you think about like a digital camera, right? You say, 20 megapixels, that's your feature. No one cares about that. What's the advantage of having 20 meg?
Well, nor do most people understand what that even means. You understand what that means. I don't understand what that means. So I'm like, okay, cool.
And that goes back to your lose the jargon thing, because again, it's not about you looking smart. It's about you being the resource that gets them to the goal. If anybody on this, in either one of our audiences right now has ever read the Donald Miller book, Story Brand, it really is, I think it oversimplifies a lot of this, but it's a great entry point for people that aren't in the industry to understand exactly how to position yourself differently, how to lead with your messaging, how to make them the hero of the story, and you're the guide. You are never the hero. And the time that you talk about yourself comes way down the line, only when they're interested to hear more. Otherwise, we're literally subconsciously built to ignore you because you're eating too many calories, and we're not surviving or thriving. We're just listening to your latest accomplishments, which nobody cares. Until later on, they're like, hey, you've shown me that you see me, you hear me, and it matters to you. You've shown me that you can solve my problem and that you know what my problem is. Now let me hear about how good you are at this.
Exactly.
And tell me more about your accomplishments, your years in the industry, your features and whatever. And instead of 20 megapixels, you should be leading with crystal clear pictures so you never lose a moment again with the most important parts of your life, or something like that. Like, what is the problem that you're solving? No one cares about your megapixels, as impressive as they are.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it becomes, you know, irrelevant, I would say.
Yes. Yes. And
Um,
I want to jump back real quick because you said something earlier about like being a promise breaker. One of the biggest things that I find why I think people break on the purposeful follow through, it's the first step in building true trust in a relationship, wherever that relationship is going to go. And so if you don't do what you say you're going to do, as little as make an email introduction, as little as make the phone call, whatever it is, you have already given yourself a tick down in regards to your brand and how you're labeled than anything else. And it starts as simple as doing that. And I know I say this all the time when I'm giving this keynote, like, do what you say you're going to do, but set up the expectations based off of your schedule. You're the only one that knows what's going on. On the other side of you, Zach, don't know what your rest of your week looks like, what the rest of your day looks like. You do. So do what you say you're going to do and set up the proper expectations that work for your schedule. It doesn't have to be in 24 hours. It doesn't have to be in 72 hours. If your week is so full and then getting on an airplane like I am tonight, I'm not going to be able to get all of these introductions done today, but they will be in your inbox by 5 p.m. on Monday. You
mhm.
set that in and then you deliver by 5 p.m. on Monday. People are like, okay, this person's already got 5 steps up from the other person that I met with 2 weeks ago from this networking event that didn't send anything still. And so that is a huge part of who you stand for as a company and building trust with your brand in your network.
And I'm sure every networking group has always told you, no, like, trust.
Oh,
Nobody
yeah.
really cares if you're in a room full of people that have their own business or they're a part of another business. Like, I'm in Provisors, and there's a lot of lawyers, there's a lot of insurance people, there's a lot of
A lot of
bankers.
attorneys. Yep.
Nobody, yeah, a
CPAs.
lot of
Yeah.
attorneys. Nobody cares about Eastern Bank versus Provincial Bank versus TD Bank. Nobody cares. They start with, can I trust you as the person facilitating this transaction?
Correct.
And that's everything you do. Do you show up late for every networking meeting? Do you show up late for your follow-up one-to-ones? All these little tiny things that some people think, oh, well, they'll understand. You know what? Keep those lines of communication flowing. I had to cancel a last minute thing today. I also coach a masterclass once a month, and there was a follow-up call because I offer about 30 minutes just complimentary, just for people to marinate on the things that we talked about, and have an opportunity to come up with questions not on the moment. Some people aren't good at that. So I want to give them the chance to still answer the questions. But I had a car thing that I had to deal with immediately. And I had to drop it off before I was stranded without a car. And I'm like, okay. But I texted the guy, I emailed him 3 times. And then I also pushed it about 30, 45 minutes. I did not hear anything from him. And then I still jumped on at the time that I said I would. And nothing happened. But I was communicating the whole way. So if this
Yep.
doesn't work, it's okay. Things do happen, but I didn't just ghost the guy. And it's also very unlike me. So because of my consistency, it's more forgivable if it happens 1 times out of 50. And it's so important because every second of every day you're building a brand, whether
All
you
day
know it or
long.
not, whether you're trying to or not. It's all in how you're being consistent and how you show up. So if you're not intentional, if you're not strategic, you could accidentally be building a brand that's not great. And it works a lot like a nickname. And I've said this a million times too, but it bears repeating. And it's, you cannot choose your own nickname. And branding is not, you're not in control of your brand. You're only in
Yep.
control of how you can influence the perception of the people you serve
Mm-hmm.
by being consistent.
Yep.
And then it's up to them how this just happened. Actually, there was a thing with Sydney Sweeney and some like American Eagle jeans or something, and there's like a lot of backlash about, is it good in your jeans? Because you're not in control of the brand, you're not in control of the narrative. It's the community that you serve and the people that are loyal to your brand or your experience that are in control, and their perception is the reality of your brand. So
Yep.
the best thing you can do is influence their perception with your consistency.
Yes.
But I love the way that you're doing this, and the reason behind it. It's so good that you're building this out with these things in mind. And I love that you're also doing that follow through with purpose and speak with
Has to be.
precision. Authenticity does not necessarily mean transparency. That's the other thing I wanted to bring up. I think a lot of people misinterpret authenticity as being completely transparent and letting all of your freak flag fly at all times, no barriers, no breaks. And that doesn't work. You still have to play to your audience. You still have to build that personal brand, and your personal brand and your personality are not the same thing.
No,
There
not at
could be
all.
some overlap, but the way that you speak to your significant other versus the way you speak to a new prospect, very different. And
Yep.
that's okay. You wouldn't say the same jokes, you wouldn't take the same risks, you probably would wear a better outfit, you'd comb your hair, whatever. You're not going to show up with bedhead to your prospect, but it would be acceptable with your significant other.
Yep.
But and I guess the best way I've ever said it was, Lady Gaga doesn't wear the meat suit at home on the couch. She's got her
No,
own personality.
she does.
There may be some crossover, and that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. But you've got to build something unique that really plays to the audience.
Yeah.
So you're building this for professionals in crowded industries. Why do you think branding matters more because of competition and not in spite of it?
This is a great question. I mean, when I came into the mortgage world about 15 years ago, I started on the back end side of things, doing the processing side, crossing T's, dotting I's, taking clients from start to finish once they decided which loan product works best for them. Learned a lot there. And then I went into the sales side of things. And I didn't even realize how crowded of an industry I was about to venture into on the sales side. But I learned very quickly through very brutal conversations and feedback from people was mortgage professionals, and this goes a lot for real estate, mortgage, finance, the whole thing. We're only present when we want something. We don't really care about anybody else, tend to be labeled as super selfish, and doesn't really follow through on things, like doesn't pick up the phone or doesn't call somebody back or anything like that. And so I've noticed that a lot early on. And so I stood back and watched a lot of people that I felt were doing networking really well, and watched what they were doing and how they were handling it. And so even to this day, right, I could throw a rock and there's another mortgage professional in the same room as me, right? Or another real estate agent, another marketing person. But it matters because when you are in a saturated market, like we talked about before, your pretty logo doesn't do anything. But how you show up, how is it clear what you do, what your voice and your actions, they are the ones that are going to make you stand out in a crowd. Okay. And then I'm going to say a little bit of who you are personality wise, because I am not everybody's cup of tea. And I am well aware of that. I'm a little spicy. I'm an East Coaster. I also don't have a problem throwing a few curse words into my thing. And that may not work for everybody. And I am way okay with that. But if you can't let all of that seep through in your brand, or when you're out representing yourself as your company, then you're just going to kind of seem like everybody else. When I was invited to try out for a BNI group, and mortgage professionals are a highly coveted position in these groups. And so the first meeting, there was 8 mortgage professionals there. Second meeting, 28 other mortgage professionals in that room. And we start going around the room, and they think in order to say something different, that it's all about, well, I do this and I have this and I have that. And me sitting in this room second week as somebody that is developing this networking group and has a strong passion for helping people make money and enjoy networking, I'm like, oh my gosh, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Another I statement. I work with 50 different lenders. I fix a lot of no's to yeses. I do this. And I'm like, those are not your differentiating factors. They are to an extent in regards to that, but mostly everybody in this room has no idea what even a mortgage broker was. Which between the difference, they just know I do mortgage financing. They don't know that it means I have 50 banks or 10 banks or one bank. They don't know, nor do they care right now. They care about what you can bring to that group. What is your networking book that surrounds you? What are you bringing to the table? That's what it is. And so I stood up the second week and I was like, every single person in this room could close a mortgage. We all follow the same exact guidelines, and our interest rates are somewhere between 6.5 and 6.875. While those numbers they're not huge, but they do make a difference. All of us are doing the same thing. We have the same products. Nobody's got this one product that's over here that eventually none of us else are going to get. That doesn't not how this world works. So what's the difference? The difference is my network is now becoming yours. The people that I interact with, I now get to advocate for you guys to them. That's the difference. And everyone was like, and I had many mortgage professionals come up after me and say, I didn't even think to say anything about that. And I'm like, well, this is where you're missing the docket, my friend, in regards to your mortgage company, to your brand, all of it. It just, if you can't do all of that, it's really difficult to not be lost as another one in a saturated market. And the simple things of coloring and your logo are not going to get you to differentiate yourself. You want those to be consistent, but how you talk about it, how you show up, and how you deliver for others is really what's going to take away and how to stand out in a crowded industry. And I'll say these take time. This is not an instantaneous thing. It starts quickly. You want to make sure your impressions are good to start, but this is not just something that you're going to go in 2 weeks in. Guess what? I'm different. I'm standing out. No, this takes months, if not years, to develop. It's a long haul game.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where that consistency comes in. And your logo is not your brand. Your logo is only there to make you easy to recognize, remember, and share. That's it. And it doesn't have to speak the entire thing. So if your name is, I don't know, Owala, Owala doesn't mean anything. It doesn't relate to a drink or the cup or the straw, but it is easy to remember and share and recognize.
Yep.
And when you're doing this in a networking group, because again, it's not about your logo. It's really about the consistency and how you show up. And when you're coming in there and you're starting to say, I have 50 lenders, I have this. That's exactly the same thing I was talking about before. That's a feature. No one cares about your feature. They don't even understand the significance of that feature.
Nobody does.
And you have to understand, again, who are you selling to? What is their problem? What language do they need to speak? Because most of the time you're probably selling to first-time home buyers, not experts in the world of mortgages, and they won't even know, like, well, why do I even care about 50 banks? Instead, think about what problem that solves and then talk about that. That's the benefit. Who cares about your 50 banks? I don't care if you got 50 banks, 500 banks, 5 banks. Can you solve my problem? I don't care how many banks you've got. It's like saying, hey, guess what? Guess how many books I've read about branding? Guess how many times I've been to school? Look at my grades. Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because I could have been top of my class and still suck at this. I could be bottom of my class and be awesome at this. None of that matters. All that matters is how you show up consistently. How you do one thing is everything. So that's why showing up on time, following through, listening with intention, like you say, all of that is so important, and it builds your brand. Your brand is so much more than your logo. So your book is focused on introverts in crowded industries.
Yes.
What's your best advice for introverts who want to build a brand and network without burning out?
Yes. I've a couple things. We were talking before we got started, Zach and I were talking about AI, because it's everywhere. It's in our lives, whether you're embracing it or you're not. But a lot of times, people that relate as more of an introvert are a little bit more tech savvy, are a little bit more into that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to challenge you to lean into that to better prepare yourself while you're going in. So I have some AI prompts, and I'm happy to give you the link for them. There's no charge. I've got about 8 of them that I use for each of my pillars and just for some general networking. I'm also in Provisors like you. And one of the beautiful things about that group is that they send out a headshot list of everybody that's going to be at that meeting that you're going to attend. I know a lot of other networking groups don't do that. I think Provisors, it's a really huge benefit, because I can then upload that list prior to me going to an event into ChatGPT and say, here's my goal for this event. This is what I want to do. Can you give me the top 5 people that I should connect with? Tell me why. Icebreaker questions, exit questions, and why you think our businesses have overlap. And I will tell you, it has told me about my business. It has pulled business owners. For example, there's a gentleman in Provisors that he's in San Antonio. He does virtual assistant. I would have never thought that that would be a good person for me to network with. I have sent him 3 people in my circle that need VAs, right? And not necessarily because of mortgage stuff, maybe a little bit more on the intentional network side of things, but ChatGPT told me that beforehand, and I made effort to go talk to Mark while we were at that meeting. So prepare yourself. Do not overschedule. You know you need time to recharge alone, okay? And you still also have to do your job, okay? So with that, Don't put 3 networking events on in your day, because by the time you hit a networking event number 2, you're going to be fried. And then you're going to not going to want to show up. And then you're going to do exactly what we told you not to do in the previous part of this episode is you've committed to go and then you don't show up without communication. So preparation, making sure you schedule appropriately, and buddy system. There's a lot of people that you already have relationships with that are extroverted like myself. And let me tell you, if anybody came up to me and needed to stand with me for a little bit or ask me, hey, Sarah, do you know if so-and-so is here today? Or is there somebody that's in marketing here today that I could talk to? I love that. I am like, yes, please let me take you over here and I'll do the ice breaking and introduction into you. I'll break into that circle for you. Buddy up with some of these people that love networking and get jazzed by humans and know the whole room. Or even if they aren't super extroverted, but they are very seasoned in that group, still lean into them. One, you'll have a safe place to always kind of go and take a break because you already know that person. But 2, they're going to do all the hard work for you and say, hey, this is Zach. He is a marketing and branding specialist, total badass. He's a seasoned entrepreneur. I know you guys will have a great conversation. Awesome. Those are 3 really easy things to do. And then I will also say for a question I get a lot is, like, I don't know how to enter like a circle of people that are kind of talking at a networking group. Something as simple as wearing a bold color earring, jewelry, something like that. And they're like, hey, I love your glasses, or I love the shirt you have on. That's a great polo you have on. That is a natural icebreaker and very, very easy to do. And if you keep it in line with your personality, it could be bold, it could be nothing, but if you're consistent, like you're wearing red every time you come to this event, it's a beautiful way to stand out, even at conferences. I was the person that had the red tie on, or the red bow tie, or the red pocket square, or the red polo shirt each time. And people will be like, I remember that. Yeah, okay, great. That is really, really good, easy, powerful tools to do that. And you don't have to be the loudest person in the room. I hear this all the time. Oh, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be salesy when I talk about my business, or I am a loud person. That's just how I am. I'm an East Coaster. I played softball. I was a catcher. Everybody in the world needed to hear me when I was on the softball field. You do not have to be the loudest person in the room to make a difference. You just need to know how to talk about your business clearly, concisely, because that seeps out into who you are. And then you will also attract the same type of people that you want to work with, even if they are all are introverts or extroverts. So really, really, really the connection, the time to have those conversations and listen, that wins every time when you're out networking and building your brand.
That's excellent advice. A couple of the things that I've heard from other networking groups, as far as just tactics, that I really liked was if you're not the introvert, a great way for you to kind of break in and make a connection is to look for the wallflower and then ask them questions and then introduce them, like you said, introduce them to someone else that you know in the room.
Yes.
And another thing was look for the body language of groups.
Very much so.
This is how it's easy for you to understand which ones are receptive to you jumping in on a conversation and which ones aren't. Usually what it is if there's 2 people kind of faced like this, that's a closed conversation. If they're tilted out like that, or if there's 3 people like that, there's room for you to jump in. Then, and to your other point about people being afraid that it's going to sound salesy if they talk about their business, it is going to sound salesy if they talk about their business. So I challenge everybody listening to this, stop talking about your business.
Yes.
Stop. Nobody cares. Instead, ask them questions about what their business is up to, and even just try to find an elegant way to see what they're challenged with right now. And as you're doing that, that arms you with an opportunity to introduce them to somebody else that can help them, or find a problem that you can solve. And that's when they're going to listen. They don't care about how long you've been doing it, they don't care what you do until you present and make visible a pain point that they're experiencing. And if you ask them to talk about it, they will talk all day about it. And do you know how valuable that is? That is, in marketing, we pay crazy amount of money to get this kind of feedback, to get this kind of insight that they'll give away. I think in B&I, they have a good way of saying, look for people who are bragging, planning, or complaining. Are you planning to do something? Are you bragging because it was just done? Are you complaining because you can't do it?
I like that.
Those 3 things are ways, because those are things people are going to people love talking about themselves.
Yes.
And
so, I
Use
was
that.
also, yep. I was also going to say, I'm sorry, I'm writing that down. Planning or complaining. I really like that.
Yeah, planning, bragging, or complaining. Listen for those things.
And
You'll get so much more. Oh,
I
go
think
ahead.
that's a great way for people to, I hear this all the time, that why I think something that I do innately, and I think you do this as well, you're able to listen and then solve, even though you don't, like, they don't even know that they're saying this stuff about, my kid is at daycare and my daycare closes at 5 and I really needed to close at 6. And you're like, oh, do I know anybody around here that's got an in-home daycare? This is this. In your brain, you're automatically thinking that. And a lot of people are like, oh, that sucks. They don't have this ability to pull the blinders back a little bit. There's room for me to solve something. There's this, there's that. So that is huge in regards to the active listening piece of it.
There's just so many things that you can do that don't require you pitching yourself. I did a presentation at a conference last year and I named it intentionally like this just to be a little provocative. Stop pitch slapping and have a meaningful message or something like that. And again, it was really just telling people, stop talking about the features, stop talking about how long you've been doing things, and really listen and learn what problem they're having so that you can say, hey, you know what? I hear that you're struggling with marketing and you're spending a lot of money and you're getting a lot of phone calls that are eating up a lot of your staff's time and they're the wrong people. That must be frustrating. I totally
Yep.
hear that. Would you be interested in hearing a little bit more about how we've helped 7 other people get away from that and lead with story? That's another thing with the story brand. We're
Yes,
hardwired
yes,
to
yes.
listen to stories. There's a reason why when you're scrolling through endless TikToks and Facebook reels that you only last 3 seconds, but at the same time you will binge watch a show for 18 episodes for hours. Story. That's it. That's it.
Yep.
That's all it is.
It's the basis of it. I remember even to this day when I get introduce myself to somebody and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'll try to make it funny and I'll be like, oh, I hustle residential mortgages all day long, eat, breathe, sleep them. Right? It's like, oh, that's funny. But you can tell sometimes a lot of body language when I say that. They're like kind of like doing that turn off or that kind of closed in. And I'm like, and I'm also a mom, a national champion softball player, equal opportunist lover of alcohol, foodie, all the things that make up me because we are all so much more than just what we do. And I also feel like a lot of those entities also make up your brand as well. We talked about showing up to your spouse versus to a client. When I'm picking out, knowing I'm going to have, a drink with somebody, everybody knows my go-to place for a happy hour because they have delicious wine and it's Postino. Right? And the vibe matches my vibe in there. The wait staff all know me by first name and they're super kind and it's just great. Like that also envelops part of your brand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A big thing that I think also people make a mistake with networking groups is the time that you're actually in the group of your home meeting is probably the least valuable time you'll have in this whole organization.
Yep.
You're sharing the spotlight with, in my case, we had a room of 60 people. I was always last with the Z, and I had to come up with some zingers to anchor this thing and wake people back up. So don't sleep on visiting other groups, but mostly go to as many events as humanly possible. The golf outings, Provisors has a lot. Some people will just invite you out on their boat. We have a Kentucky Derby thing. Oh, there's so many things. There's a
We have
clam
hiking
bake,
here. Yep, we have all of it.
hiking, and those are the things that are going to make much more difference by 1,000% than any time that you could pitch to somebody in a room who's already checked out at 7 a.m. or whenever your thing's out, and they're just trying to figure out what the rest of the stuff's going on in their day, or maybe you just had a terrible pitch and it just bounced off of everybody in the room. It's not going to resonate as much as when you go to these things. And then when you go to these things, you can learn more about these people. Do they have kids? What are their interests? Did they just come back from a trip? So when you do that follow up, it's not just, hey, I'm just checking in. It's like, hey, how's your dog? I know your dog was, sick the
Yes.
other day. How's that kennel cough doing? Don't sleep on the events. I'm telling you, they're almost more important than your one-to-ones that are sometimes
Yep.
mandatory. They're more important than the time that you spend in those groups. Go to the barbecues. Go to the lake days. Go to everything you possibly can. You've got to stay visible consistently. And like you were saying, it's like 7 to 15 times before any message penetrates our head. because we're constantly searching for something that's going to help me survive or thrive. And if you're not clear and consistent, then I'm not going to remember you because you showed up differently every single time. And if your logo and your brand identity isn't easy to identify, recognize, and share, then it's going to be
Yep.
difficult. If you can't read it from a distance, if it's a big crazy illustration, if it has nothing to do with your business because it's something that was your favorite, it's colors that don't work and a name that doesn't work and imagery that doesn't work, and it's all because it was your hobby in college and it's your favorite.
You said something really cool before, and I want to just reiterate that this is part of my purposeful follow through. The words that I feel like are the bane of existence when you're doing follow through is we're using the word "I'm just following up." And we just talked about using social events. We call them affinity groups and improvisers. There's a lot happy hours that you do with the group or whatever it is. That's where the magic really happens. And that's where you can get personal information about the people and say, hey, last time we talked, I know that your mom was struggling. How's that going? What's going on? How can I support you? Those are ways that you are doing your follow-up checkup, but doing it in a much more personalized manner that doesn't make somebody be like, ugh, they're just working down the list and here I am on the list again. No, you're doing it because you're able to bring a personal thing about them per your connection and genuinely add value.
Yeah, and that builds that connection, like you said. No, absolutely. Yep. And if you're the type of person that has a hard time remembering everything about everyone, that's okay too. That's where a CRM or a customer relationship manager software
all day long.
In. You've just got their phone number, their address, whatever, and then you have a place for notes. Hey, last time our conversation was he was struggling with this, or the dog was sick, or we talked about a trip he just came back from. And then when you go back, just take 2 seconds and review. You don't have to be a brain that remembers every little detail, but you can seem like that with the power of technology. And that's going to really, because people only care about being seen, heard, and that it matters to you because we're only looking to survive or thrive. If you can figure how to do that and weave story into it, even instead of saying, we had a project and we built this website and this website looks cool and it generated $5 billion. It's not even really important. But if you could tell a story about the struggle that one of your clients was going through and how you helped them get to the other side of it, people will see themselves in that story and they'll rely on you to repeat that for them.
Yes.
But beautiful. Sarah, I really want to thank you so much for your time today. I'm really excited for you and what you're doing with your book, and I want to keep in touch and everything. But if you want your brand to stand out in networking circles, it's not about handing out more business cards or joining every group in the planet. It's about aligning your mindset, showing up with authenticity, having clear, precise messaging, and following through in a way that reinforces your brand long after the meeting ends. That's the power of Sarah's network. And honestly, whether you're an introvert or tired of bad networking rooms, this episode gave you the blueprint. So if you like today's conversation, go give Sarah a follow on LinkedIn and stay tuned for our coming book. I'll send all the links and I'll put it in our social media, and we'll get you those AI prompts as well. And if you're building your own brand strategy networking group or wondering why people aren't referring you, revisit your MAPP. Your brand isn't just what you say, it's how you make people feel everywhere you show up. As always, thanks for listening to Brand Chops, where we chop up brands to see what they're made of. We'll see you next time. Brand Chops is brought to you by the fine people at Pivot Creative. Pivot Creative is a full-service branding and marketing agency that partners with businesses to build brands that connect so that every dollar you spend is an investment and not an expense. If you need some branding or marketing guidance, a website, a new brand, or want to learn more about one of the topics we cover on the show, please reach out to us at pivotcreative.com. If you know someone that would benefit from learning more from one of our shows, please share the episode. Visit brand-chops.com. And as always, like and subscribe if you find this content to be helpful. See you next time on Brand Chops, where we chop up brands to see what they're made of.